All right. So Eric and Meg from DenVantage here, and Meg's going to walk us through a training on how to work with our teams using DenVantage for in-office savings plan, membership plan. What do you say?
We call it a membership plan.
All right, go for it.
Well, there's a ton of different ways to
Yeah.
keep track of it in your software. And the reason for that is there are so many different softwares and
Yes.
everyone uses it differently. So
Okay.
we don't necessarily have like a hard and fast so you have to do it. We just have some recommendations and some suggestions based on what other offices have done that seems to be successful for them.
Okay.
I'm going to go over 3 different ways.
Okay.
Those seem to hit at least whatever the generalities are of any way of doing it. So
Okay.
the first way is you can keep track of it as a whole. So just DenVantage as a whole. The second, you can keep track of it by patient if you want to do that. And then the third is to not really keep track of those monthly deposits in your practice management system at all. Kind of keep them a little bit separate. So the keeping in track of it as a bulk is kind of the way I really try to recommend offices do it because it's so much easier.
Okay.
The other ways seem to be, this is the way that Dave Pier's office does it, and he's done it for years.
Okay.
So I know it works.
Great. So how do they do that? Meaning I've got 10 people registered and I get one bulk payment.
Yes. So that's how it works with us. What we do is we collect the membership fees from their patients monthly, and we kind of put all that into one big deposit, and we give it back to the offices once a month. It's always between the 8th and the 10th. Just depends on when the weekend falls.
Okay.
But they do just get the one big deposit from us. So keeping track of it just as one big deposit seems to be the easiest. And that's the way that Dave's office does it. So when they're setting it up in their practice management system, there's a couple things that I recommend you do regardless of whatever way you're going to keep track of that monthly deposit. And the first thing I absolutely recommend you do is you're going to want to create a new provider in the system. So much like Doctor has a number to allocate his production that you post with the transaction, you're going to want to create a similar provider just for DenVantage. And you're going to use it in conjunction with a couple adjustments, which I'm going to in a little bit. So that's the first step. The second step they'll want to do is I recommend creating new codes in the system just for each plan they're going to offer. So they have 4 different DenVantage programs, like say they have just a regular adult preventative, a perio 3 visits, perio 4 visits, and a child. However many plans they have, I recommend that they make a code for that plan. And if they're keeping track of it in bulk, like as a whole, I recommend this fee for the code remain at 0. And then if they're keeping track of it by patient, I recommend something different. But I'll
okay, let me make sure I understand that. So if going to track by, I'm taking notes while you're telling me this too. If going to track by bulk, then fees are 0.
Yes, and these codes aren't necessarily to keep track of what the cost of the plan is. It's just to see when they signed up and what plan they're on. When you're keeping track of it by bulk, it's a little bit different when you're keeping track of it by patient, but I'm gonna go through it as bulk first.
So in order to see when they signed up and what was the other thing?
What plan they're on.
Okay. Now, they are on. Now, wouldn't that also be like you would then run a procedure code report to see how many of them you charged out to? Would that also be?
You can do that as well.
Okay.
If you want to see how many patients you have on each plan, that's another reason that you can do it. But mainly it's just kind of a quick check just to make sure that they're on the right plan and that they're, getting the services they're supposed to be getting.
I understand.
But so that's the second step.
Okay.
They'll also want to create another code for that appointment reschedule. So if a patient with DenVantage cancels without giving, I think it's 48 hours business notice, they are charged automatically a rescheduling fee. And now each office can decide what they want that fee to be. It defaults to $40, but I've had offices go anywhere from I think like 35 to up to 150.
Okay.
So they can customize that. So they'll create another code for that rescheduling fee, and it'll be whatever they have decided that fee is in the practice there. So that's another code they'll want to make.
And that is to eat up their payments in DenVantage, but then the patient has to pay cash for something then.
Right. So the rescheduling fee the patients have to pay directly to the office. So technically what will happen is the office will add it to the patient's ledger or transactions, and then hopefully they should be also adding a payment the same day. Kind of take care of that $40 balance or whatever the rescheduling fee balance
is. Okay.
Yeah. So after that, they'll also want to create a couple adjustments in the system, and I recommend doing at least 2 because it's good for tracking. They can have one for hygiene services and one for doctor treatment, because DenVantage members, they pay that membership fee, and in exchange, they're getting all of their regular routine preventative care covered, basically 100%. So we use the hygiene preventative savings code for hygiene appointments. And then if they come in for a crown or something, they do save a little bit. So that's when we use doctor adjustment. So I recommend you can title them whatever you want, but popular ones just seem to be DenVantage hygiene savings, and then for doctor just DenVantage savings. So you can kind of umbrella that one if you have to. But so both these adjustments will be set up to decrease the balance. So when they're going through the setup, just make sure that it's one that's going to take away.
So it's a credit adjustment, yes.
Right. So the other thing that they can do that I recommend they do is if they don't already have like a direct deposit payment code or like an electronic funds transfer payment option, that they make one. And some offices have actually just made a DenVantage monthly deposit or DenVantage payment.
Okay. Now let me ask you a question. Is that to put it as a bulk? If you're putting that as a bulk payment, you're saying that would be into, and what are you putting that into as far as whose ledger does that go into?
So if you're keeping track of it in bulk, you'll want to create like a dummy patient. So you can title it whatever you want. I think Dave uses DenVantage accounts receivable or something along those lines. But just something so you can have a ledger that you can. So when you get that monthly deposit from me, what they'll do is they'll go into that DenVantage patient's ledger, the DenVantage account ledger, excuse me, and they'll put in a payment code for whatever the total monthly deposit was. So let's say I gave them $3,000.
Yeah.
Put in a payment code for $3,000. Now the problem with that now is that account's going to show a $3,000 credit.
Yes.
And we don't want that. We don't want to see their numbers like that. So what they'll do then is they'll put in an equal opposing production charge for the same amount.
Yep.
So what Dave's office does is, I think Leanne, that's his office manager there, she just puts in, using one of those plan codes that we created, I think she just uses one of those and just plops in $3,000. So it'll be equal to whatever the deposit was. So that's what she does. Other offices have actually just created another code that they can use instead of using one of the plan codes, just in case, like you said, they just want to run a report and see how many have this particular code. So you can do a new one, you can use an existing one. If you just want to use some sort of adjustment, you can do that too. But with this production charge, the important thing to remember is if they're ever going to run any internal reports, they'll want to subtract out that production charge because it's not really production. If anything, it'll be doubling.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So what if okay, that's a good point. So what if in that dummy account, when they post a payment for $3,000 from DenVantage, then instead of charging out DenVantage plans for $3,000, they just did a debit adjustment for DenVantage. That's
another way of doing it. Yeah.
Okay. So
they can do that too. If they're using the production way, that's where I recommend using that DenVantage provider that we created. So if they ever wanted to run a report and exclude the DenVantage from the production, they can do that too. It's however they want to see it really in their book. But that's the way I recommend doing it. Or like you said, using the debit adjustment.
Yeah, I would do a debit adjustment, I think. A debit adjustment as DenVantage charges.
Yeah, either way, I think works fairly well. It just depends on how they want to see it.
Okay, I'm sending a group message here. It won't let me go anymore. So you know what? I'm gonna move this to Word document. Give me 1 second.
No, take your time.
All right, let's go here. New document. Okay. DenVantage charge. So I just need to go here. this. I can keep my notes here.
Yeah.
Let's see. Do I do debit adjustment? Manage charges to offset payment. I'm just curious, I'm sure you're going to get to this, is if we do an incoming payment, real money, we do a debit to offset that, then there's going to be charges that we actually produce that will also need to be paid. And so when those are paid, then we would do a credit adjustment for those charges that were actually produced.
So when a patient comes in for, let's say they're coming in for like a hygiene appointment, and let's say it's like $200. So the hygienist will post as she normally would for any other patient, and it should still be regular office fees because we still want her to get her full production.
Yep.
So let's say they post everything for $200. That's when we use those adjustments we created. So we'll add in that DenVantage hygiene savings adjustment code, but still want her to get her production. Put it towards the DenVantage provider again, so that way they can run a report if they have to for the DenVantage provider, and that way it doesn't give the hygienist the production and then just automatically take it away.
Okay.
And it'll be for the total amount. So if it's a $200 appointment, it'll be a $200 adjustment.
And it'll be under the DenVantage provider ID.
That's the way I recommend doing it. Some offices have decided that all DenVantage adjustments are going to go towards doctor. They can do that. If they want, just know that if they are on a bonus system where it counts for doctor's production or collections or anything like that, they're going to want to just remember that it's kind of skewing the numbers there.
And that's actually, so going back to my way of doing the debit adjustment to offset the bulk payment, then you'd have credit adjustments to also offset that bulk payment debit adjustment. So, okay, that could work. I understand. Okay.
So that's the easiest way I can think of doing it is as a bulk. And the reason for that is the other way of doing it by patient requires a lot more work.
Yeah.
And it's not, in my opinion, it's not as clean as doing it as the bulk. I mean, no way is 100% clean. Like no way is going to be perfect. These practice management systems aren't set up to do something like this. So we're trying to operate within parameters that we really, I mean, it's just not set up that way. So the other way of doing it by patient is when they're still create the provider, they'll still create the adjustments, they'll still create the codes. But what I recommend for the codes, for the plan codes, is that now they do one of two things. And the second thing is kind of new, and the only reason I'm mentioning it is because it's Dr. Nestle's office who has decided.
Oh, okay.
What I recommend doing is the plan code fee will be whatever the monthly fee is times 12. So it'll be the annual fee for the year that the patient will eventually be paying. So if it's, $30 a month, they'll put in a $360 fee for it when they're creating the plan codes. So when a patient signs up, they'll add this code into the patient's ledger. So it'll look like there's a $360 balance on the account, but eventually it'll be paid down throughout the year. So if they're doing this, a couple things are really important. One, it's not a true balance, so they don't need to be worrying about it on the 30, 60, 90. They don't need to send statements because that's really going to confuse your patient. So if they have like a user code set up in their system to stop that patient from getting statements, or when they're going through their statements at the beginning of the month, they just make sure none of their DenVantage members.
So this is, I'm going to summarize. I go to Ricky Bobby. I charge, if our fee's $30 a month times 12, $360. I charge DenVantage membership plan, something like that. Okay, $360. That goes under that DenVantage ID that we created.
You can do that, or some offices, they have just a regular office provider. Like it's not a particular provider, it's just the office. As
goes under doctor or something. Okay, or office.
So that too.
And then, and then every month as I'm collecting $3,000, I'm splitting that and I'm going to every single patient. That I have to go find every single patient and enter that 12th of that payment into that account.
So when I send out those monthly deposits between the 8th and the 10th, they always get a monthly report from me too that explains who made a payment, how much they paid, how I got the number, all that good stuff. So they take that monthly revenue report and they treat it like an explanation of benefits almost. They're just going to go in and have to put in a payment into every patient's chart, which when you've got 10, 15 patients, not so bad.
But
when
if
you've
you
got
get
100 patients, 200 patients, it takes a while.
Yeah.
So that's why the bulk method, I think, really seems to work.
Smart. Okay. That makes sense.
Patients, but not in patients, on offices. But I found recently that a lot of offices really want to try the patient way, the by patient way. And so I'm trying to help them as best I can, but there's a lot of,
well, and because they're used to entering payments like an EOB, so when you send them their monthly payment, their $3,000, does it break down every payment in patient's name in that payment from you guys?
It's by whoever made the payment. So if it's a family plan, they're not going to see the individual people in the family plan.
By
They'll
guarantor then. Okay.
Exactly. And that's, yeah, exactly.
That could work. Okay. That's not too bad. Again, if you don't have tons of them, then that's not bad. And this might work too if the patient decides to pay the whole thing for the whole year, if they pay the whole 3. Okay.
Yeah.
All
so
right.
Dr. Netzley's office, what they decided to try instead is, instead of putting the annual amount for each of the plan fees, they put the monthly ones. So every time they get a monthly report from me, they're going to be putting in 2 codes, or that's what they said they were going to be doing.
Yeah.
One for the plan fee, and then another with the payment. So again, a good rule of thumb, generally speaking, that I always try to explain to offices is that if they're doing it the bulk method, or they're doing it the way that Dr. Netzley's office is going to be doing it, the account balance should always be 0.
Yeah.
That's a good rule of thumb. For the by patient method, it should always be, the account balance should always be whatever it was before the patient came in.
Yeah, so that makes it hard. If they had like what needs to happen is, if you're going to do it on a patient by patient basis, the balance needs to be 0 before you start. Yeah.
And then it also gets a little bit further complicated, because technically DenVantage members are supposed to pay in full on the day of service.
Yeah.
That being said, there's a lot of wiggle room in that contract, and I tell offices that a lot of the time they're going to be able to make a lot of decisions themselves, especially regarding payment arrangements with patients. So like if it's a crown and they don't do same-day crowns, most offices do half an impression, half at seat. So if they still want to do that for DenVantage members, that's absolutely fine by me. It's just something that they have to make sure that they're paying attention to.
Yeah, I totally get it.
So that's the by patient way. I'm trying to think what other things I should mention on that way, but like I said, that's how Dr. Netzley's office mentioned they wanted to do it, is they put in the plan fee code and then automatically back it out with that.
And are they doing that by a charge and collections, or are they doing that by debit and credit? They got to do that by charging it.
Collections.
Charging money. Yeah, if you do it that way, it's got to be, Yeah. The problem is it's not really production. Like you said, it's doubling your production.
And the real thing is, the other problem is the deposit slips at the end of the day. So, it's an electronic funds. That's why I say they should probably create a new one if they don't have one already, because they don't have a physical payment. They don't get a check from me. It's an automatic deposit right to their bank account. So that's just another thing that I do recommend that they do, is if they don't have a direct deposit or an electronic funds transfer as a payment option, that they make one.
Yeah, I don't like producing it when it's the fee, when it's the membership plan fee. Yeah, okay.
Because like you said, it's not really production. If anything, it's just, and that's my other problem with the by patient way, is they're not really collecting the money. I am.
Yeah.
And it's just something that they're getting from me. So that's another reason I like the bulk method, is it just seems so much cleaner and easier.
Yeah, I do too. Okay.
But maybe you can convince them then.
Yeah, I don't know. It's almost like, and once you start, it's hard to change too.
Yes. Luckily, Dr. Netzley's office, they've only been on it for, I think, the end of January.
Yeah.
I think they have like six patients.
Yeah. I don't think they'll have a ton of patients on it. We're really trying to get it for marketing to new patients, to try to get new patients in. And then with this whole Corona stuff, it's really slowed down new patient flow. So. Yes,
for sure. I noticed as far as call volume yesterday, it seemed pretty normal, but I definitely saw a decrease in the number of new patients involved yesterday. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah. Okay. So there is a third way, and this is the way Dan Stanke's offices do it.
Okay.
And Kevin and Dan's office. They don't keep track of the payment in their system at all.
Okay.
And what they do instead is, I helped their team create like a tracker, like a spreadsheet, where they they do a report for what the monthly hygiene production is, and then on that spreadsheet they also track the DenVantage deposit that they got. So they keep track of the payment separate. They still do everything else the same. They have the DenVantage provider, they have the codes, they have the adjustments. It's just they don't keep track of the payment in their actual system. And they add it on at the end of the month.
That's complicated.
Yeah. So I like the both way. It's worked really well for Dave the last couple of years. So that's the way I try to get offices to go. But those are the 3 different ways. So there's a couple of other things that they can do in their system to make it a little bit easier to see that they're DenVantage members. So another thing I really like is, even though we're not insurance, some offices treat us like insurance almost basically in their system. So where you can go into Dentrix or any of the practice management systems and make a new insurance company, they have added DenVantage in there so that they can import it into the patient's chart. Now they don't put like a fee schedule, or like they don't do like a lot of them you can put like they'll cover 50% of major, 80% of basic, all that stuff. They don't do any coverage percentages, anything like that. It's literally just something that they can put into the patient's chart. So if they print off routing slips, they can see, oh, this is a DenVantage number real quick. So.
Yes. So Dr. Netzley's office added DenVantage as an insurance plan.
Yeah, I thought they had.
Yeah. Now, do you recommend they do that?
I mean, anything you can do to make it obvious that the patient is a DenVantage member, I'm for. So I do like that way. I wasn't going to mention this way, but I'm going to do it now just because we're talking about this. I had a new office sign on not too long ago, and they're in Maine. And what they have done, they've done a completely different way. And what they did is they did create a new DenVantage fee schedule in the system. So hygiene fees, but all the doctor procedures, all restorative treatment is at the discounted rates already. So when a new patient signs up, they import in the DenVantage fee schedule into their account, and then their codes, their plan codes, those codes they create that show what plan the patient is on, they did put in the annual fee, but it's their fees were literally just what a year of hygiene costs divided by 12. So they didn't discount their hygiene fees at all. So what they're doing is when a patient comes in for hygiene, they're not writing anything off. They're just getting the payments in. And oh, sorry, I did that backwards. They did not. Sorry,
it's okay.
I went over this a couple times. They left the plan fee at 0. So the plan code fees, they left at 0. So when the hygienist posts the production, eventually throughout the year,
it balances.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the way they have done it. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Again, it's tracking it is hard. So I do like putting in the insurance plan in DenVantage because it identifies that patient and it could show them some savings off of your UCR, but that would require write-offs.
Yeah.
And so I think also looking at what did we give away being in DenVantage is an important number to match, because we know what insurance costs us. We don't really know what DenVantage is going to cost us. We don't know how many people are on it and how many people came in because of it, that sort of thing. There's a give and a take there. So, okay. I'm trying to think of questions clients may have that I may need to ask you down the line. So when you're training them, so you go over these 3 things, and then what do you do next with them?
So I try not to, and that was one of the things with Dr. Netzley's office, there was a miscommunication there, because I don't like remoting into their systems and actually doing the setup. And there's a ton of reasons for that, but the main one is yes, I have a dental background, but it's been 3-4 years since I've been in these systems actively working. So I'm afraid of screwing something up. So I try not to remote into their systems.
Okay.
I do have software where I can remote in, and I'm more than happy to watch them do it. But as far as actually actively taking over control of the mouse, I don't do that. If they, I do have, I sent it to you that I have handouts for everything. Basically.
Yeah. Okay.
So I do send them that, and I ask them, because the way implementation works is it's usually 2 to 3 phone calls. So first one is pretty introductory. it's just a couple forms, like plan fees, things along those lines that we go over. The second one's much more nitty-gritty details, and this is usually when we go over practice management stuff. But what I do usually is a couple days, or if not like a week before, I'll send out that handout with the setup instructions, so that way hopefully they have a chance to read over it and we can go over questions during the call there, because if I had to pick a part where people stress out, it's putting it into the practice management software.
Yeah.
So I try to give them as much of a heads up before actually going over it on a call, because it makes for a really tense, stressful call if I'm just going over it from scratch. Because like you said, a lot of offices, they want to see it patient by patient. They want to see it in the patient's ledger. So they almost disregard the bulk way out of hand, I think, a lot of times.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking maybe both is the answer, because I think you should do the bulk payment and then you produce it. So I'll make sure I understand here. So if I was a practice, I did a bulk payment because I want, several patients on it. I want, if I had 100 patients on it, I'd get that $3,000 check, right? Is that right? Is that math right? So I get a big check, bulk payment, and then I would do a debit adjustment to produce it, to offset that payment. And then over on the actual patient side, I would produce it under their normal ID. So the hygienist gets credit. The patient's not going to pay anything. So then I would do a DenVantage credit adjustment for that specific fee that month that they produce in hygiene. Or if they came in to see doctor, I'd produce it on the doctor and I would do a DenVantage credit adjustment. And then they would be just identified in my software as having DenVantage insurance. So I could show them 100% coverage on preventive, and I could show them, 90% coverage to 80% coverage on doctor things, or vice versa. 10% savings, 20% savings. So they pay 80 or 90%. So then they pay the difference. So, that's how I would do it. Does that seem normal to you?
That's 100% correct.
Okay.
As far as I can tell.
Yeah, we don't need to make it super complicated.
I try to keep it as easy as possible because that's one of our main selling points there is it's meant
and I could see why they would want to know, did they pay their monthly fee each month? That's why I want to put it on their ledger.
It requires a little bit of trust in me, which I understand can be hard for a lot of offices, but that's my job. That's what I do. I'm making sure the payments go through.
So it's really important to make sure that when I get the bulk payment from you, I'm getting a breakdown of who paid what. Then I need to have my list, maybe even a combination of number 3 here. Then I need to have an Excel spreadsheet where I'm making sure that all my people are getting paid every month that say they're paying, so I can write it off.
That's what Ted Morgan's offices used to do. Is I'm not sure that they've updated that spreadsheet in a while. When it moved over towards, they got to know me a little bit. I think that they did away with that. But that is what some offices do. And the other thing that comes with the monthly reports that I send out is I also send out a spreadsheet of all active patients that they currently have on the program. So they get that every month. So that's another way that they can double check just to make sure.
Okay, go over that for me one more time. Say that again.
So with that monthly report that we send out between the 8th and the 10th, I always email it to probably doctor and at least one person in the front office, whether it's office manager or whoever. But also on that email, I attach a spreadsheet that lists all of their active patients. So if they have, 10 patients, all of those patients are individually listed there. That way, if they want to double check in their systems, like, oh, we didn't see Susie Smith signed up.
Gotcha.
We should add it into her account.
So I would assume then if somebody wasn't paying, you'd notify the office right away.
So that's exactly what happens. If I notice that a payment doesn't go through, I email the office first. I say, hey, just so you know, this patient's payment didn't go through. If they come in for an appointment before I contact you to let them know it's set, please have them call me before you render any further services.
Okay.
So they get that right away. And then I'm reaching out to the patient to try to correct it. If for whatever reason I can't reach the patient, then I'll reach out to the office and be like, hey, maybe they just don't recognize my name. Will you give me a call?
Yes, that makes sense. So when I'm setting up a patient on DenVantage, do I just log into DenVantage website and I set them up there and put their payment information in and everything?
So the patient can do it themselves or the office can help them do it, but they just go to www.denvantage.com and they just go from there. A lot of offices, what I do after they get up and running with us is we have a specific website link that leads right to the enrollment process for their particular office, because otherwise they have to go to our website, click on find a dentist, find their dentist, and then click on the sign up link. The link I send them goes right to step 1 of the enrollment process. And it's only 4 steps. It's super easy. If you want, I can show you. We can go through a demo of how the patient signs up. If you
want. Great. Yeah. Do you know how to screen share on this?
I don't.
So on the bottom there's a green up arrow in a box, and you just hit that, and then it'll show you on the next screen which screen would you like to share. You can do your whole computer if you like, and then go from there.
Okay. I'm just gonna do. Okay, so can you see mine right now?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. I am going to, so we have, I'll show you on the actual website first. So this is what the regular website looks like. If a patient was just coming directly, they'd have to click on find a dentist.
Okay, gotcha.
All of our providers are listed. They would just click the sign up link next to their office. But we do have a site just solely for practice, so I'm gonna go to that one.
Okay.
I can just show you the whole process start to finish. So the difference between the regular site and the practice site is the red border.
Yeah.
Everything else is pretty much identical. So it's important that you know which site you're on. But so I'm going to go through, also on the practice site, there's only the 4 partner practices.
Okay.
So that's another way of telling. But I'm just going to go with Dave's office.
Okay.
But pop-up window will pop up just saying, hey, is this the office you want to sign up with? Because when we first started out, we had a lot of patients sign up under the incorrect office. So it's just a stopgap. Pay attention to what you're doing type thing.
Gotcha.
But then this is step 1. This is where that link I mentioned brings the patients automatically. And it's really simple stuff. So step 1 is billing parties information. So this is whoever is basically going to be making payments. And we don't ask for information that we don't need. So everything on here does need to be filled out, except for mailing address, line 2, and the number. But I'm just going to plop some information. So like I said, this will just be whatever the billing party's info is. And it's important that it's correct because step 4 is the payment step, and it's just going to pull automatically.
It's going to pull
from step 1.
Okay.
So night phone, secondary phone can be left empty. We do require an email address. If the patient doesn't have one, have the office just put in the regular office email. But I try to tell offices, like, we don't spam them. They literally only get things that are important to them. So try to get them to give it.
Yes, need that email address.
Will say that they don't have one, but they really do. So stuff, just name, address, phone, email. They'll hit next. Step 2 is where we actually, step 1 billing party. So it's not necessarily always the patient's name. Like if mom was signing up her son, mom would be in step 1. Step 2 is where we specify who's actually on the plan. So there's a couple options here at the top. If it's a family signing up, they just select the family and it'll refresh. And now there's a ton of fields. And this one-time setup fee will automatically change. So they don't necessarily have to change that. That automatically is just based on the bubble up there. I'm just going to keep it on single because it's easier that way.
Okay.
But they can also select monthly or annual. It's going to default to single monthly because that's a good portion of the people who sign up. Okay. But they'll just type in the name of the person who's actually signing up for the program. So if it's mom signing up for son, son's name is going to go here, not mom's. And I do ask for first and last name just for identification purposes.
Yep.
But then you'll hit on the drop down. It'll list all the plans that the practice is currently offering, and then they'll just select.
That was a question I had right there. Was what if they select the wrong plan?
If they select the wrong plan, it's not a hard thing. They do have to go through me in order to get it fixed.
Okay.
But all they have to do is call me and say, "Hey, John Smith just signed up. He should have been on Perio 3, not Adult 2." And then what I'll do is I'll be like, I'll have to collect the difference between the 2 payments just to get them caught up.
Gotcha.
But most patients understand that that's a thing that's going to happen. But if the opposite is true, if they've signed up for a higher plan that's more expensive than what they need, I can always either refund the payment or I can credit it towards the next month's payment.
Okay.
So either way works. But it's going to automatically calculate a couple things over here. So these are Dave's old fees. But
Okay.
so he actually charges $27.50 a month now for his adult preventative plan. I think it's actually going up soon. But
can you click perio for me just so I can see how it changes? Perio 3 visit. Okay. Okay, I gotcha.
So the fee is automatically tied into whatever plan they select, and then that one-time fee, if you remember on the family, it was $95. It's $55 for an individual. So it's gonna calculate that first payment. That's what's due from the patient today when they sign up. If you were on annually, it's literally just gonna calculate fee times 12.
Times 12. Now, if they wanted to, let's say they were a 4-visit patient, but they wanted to do a 3-visit plan, then that means they just pay me for the 4th visit direct?
You can do that. Some offices, that's what they do. It doesn't make much sense because usually the Perio 4 plan is cheaper. You figure it out versus the other one. What I have some offices do is, let's say they
maybe they add a visit or something for some reason.
But if the patient needs to come like twice a year and they don't have a Perio 2 plan, what they do is they'll sign them up for the adult plan, just the regular 2 profies per year, and then they'll collect the difference between what they charge for a perio maintenance and the profi. That's another way of doing it. But most these days, I almost always recommend to offices, if they have those patients a lot that alternate, they just start off with a perio 2 plan.
Just keep them in perio.
So they can really get creative on what they want.
Okay.
Once all those blanks are filled in, they'll just hit next. And then it's the patient contract. It's not super long, but I mean, it's human nature to just click through.
I agree on all of them. I gotcha.
So we do have 4 separate checkboxes that, again, we're just hoping slow people down so they actually read the really important bits. So all treatment must be paid in full. If they don't, they're giving up their savings.
Yeah.
There is a rescheduling fee. And then, so remember I said this can change just based on whatever the office would like to do. So they just got to agree to that, because if there's one thing that we get a lot of pushback on patients for, it's, I didn't know about this fee. Right there. But then overall, just agree to the whole contract.
Okay.
Did you want me to go over this at all?
That's good.
Any of the fine points? Okay.
That's good.
So next brings you to the last step. It's just payment information. So we can do it from either a credit debit card or with account and routing numbers.
I gotcha.
So most people will use a credit debit card. That's why it automatically defaults to that one. But if you do select the ACH, it's just going to refresh. And now you for routing account. Also comes with examples.
Okay.
Because one of what I've seen a lot recently, well, not recently, just throughout all my time here, is people don't know the difference.
No, they don't.
Or they'll add on the check number to the end of the account.
Because that's on their check sometimes too. I get it.
So I do recommend that credit and debit card for myself. It is better, and the reason for that is it's so much faster than the ACH. I don't know that an ACH is declined for sometimes 2 to 3 weeks after the payment has been processed, and that's just due to the fact that it's a check. There's no other reason. It just takes so long because I have to submit the request to the payment company has to submit the request to the bank has to either confirm or deny those funds, and then they have to get it back to the payment company has to get it to me. So there's just a lot of steps in there, so that's why it takes so long, which is why I like the credit debit card, because I know the next day if it doesn't go through. But so like I said, it pulls in the information from step 1, so hopefully all that is correct. And then all you have to do is put in like the card number, the expiration date, code. I do have a fake credit card that you can use just for the demo purposes, just so you can see it start to finish. But this is really important here. Don't click finish more than once because it might charge the patient more than once. It doesn't happen often, but with a credit debit card, it doesn't make a huge difference because I can cancel that transaction as long as it's still the same day. With an e-check, I can't. It'll go through and there's nothing I can do. So it spins for a second, so it's tempting to hit it a second time, but there's a lot going on here. And that was a lot longer than it usually takes. Just
probably because we're also using Zoom or something.
Probably. But it sends an email to me, so I know a new patient signed up. It sends an email to the office, so they know somebody signed up. And it also sends an email to whatever email was put in step 1. So hopefully it goes to the patient. But that email comes with all of this information. So the office they signed up. This applicant ID is not a membership number. It's just for me. So it's strictly for internal purposes. You don't need to remember that long number.
Okay.
Who's the billing party, what plan they're on, how much it costs, when their next payments come and due, and then just some
Yeah.
miscellaneous financial information down there. But
Okay.
this is what gets emailed to those 3 different people. It's also processing that first payment. It's setting them up with a recurring payment. So it's a lot going on.
Yeah, that's good.
That's the enrollment process. It really doesn't take long. And it's meant to be simple so that even your older patients will hopefully be able to figure it out. It works on mobile devices, on computers, so they can do it on their phone in the chair if they want. If the office has an iPad, another great thing I've seen is if they have an iPad, give it to the patient while they're waiting on numbing, or maybe they're waiting on an exam, and then it kills some time.
Yep.
But yeah,
Perfect. All right. Awesome. Thank you for taking me through that. I'm almost thinking we need to figure out how to do one of these, a Zoom video recording where we have a Dentrix ledger and we have the fake DenVantage provider. We're doing the bulk check, and then we show them how to put a payment in, like, and do it the way I think it should be done, which is really, you know, how you said, number one, it's a bulk payment with a debit, I would think a debit adjustment, and then it's charges under provider with a credit adjustment under your fake DenVantage ID. And walking them through how to do that so they can see it on this as a training device, almost like a YouTube video that you could send and they walk through it. I think that would be good. And the reason is, I mean, dental offices change team members and they need to train someone new a lot, and you don't want to keep going back through and training and training and training. So
the good thing is well, one of the good things is it's really just a lot of initial setup. On the monthly thing usually doesn't take a whole lot of time.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons we haven't really done it is because not everyone's going to do it the exact same way.
Yeah.
And so that's why I haven't done it yet. The other reason is that Dave has Dentrix, so I can log in and do Dave. And that's like one of our rainy day things. It's like, we should do that. And then we just never seem to get
Sure. I get that.
What I have had is, I don't know if you've talked with Kelly or Leanne over at Dave's offices at all, but
not lately.
They, way back when, they did a bunch of screenshots for me for like steps. And then I had, so like that handout I sent you, the DenVantage plan setup, I had one for Dentrix, I had one for SoftDen, I had one for EagleSoft, but they're all really outdated now because of all the versions having
they
gone.
They do updates. That's a good point.
So quickly and so often that instead of doing it, and the thing is, it's all universal. Like as far as the steps that need to be done, the only thing that changes is how you do it in each of the practice management systems. So that's why I just put it all into one general, this is what you need to do. And you can do it on your own. As far as, I'm sure you know how to create providers and codes and all of that. So I don't think I need to explain to offices how to do that. It's just, this is what you should do. And that's what the instructions help with.
Yeah. No, I feel like there should be a high recommendation to do it that number one way, you know, to make it easier.
I sure do try, let me tell you. But everyone's just
when you train them, do you say this is the way you will do it? You'll get a bulk payment, you'll do a credit adjustment, and like almost like lay it out for them, and then they bring up other ways, or do you give them the options and let them choose?
When I go through it, I go through the 2 different ways. I go bulk and I do patient. I try to go through bulk first to try to just say, this is the way to do it. But halfway through, not even halfway through, I don't like that. No, we can't do it that way.
Really?
And they automatically just, it really is hard.
I think the confusion may be that they don't know that when you do bulk payment that you're actually doing part 1 and 2 together. You're doing bulk payment with a credit adjustment, but you're also putting it in their ledger when you do it. That's a debit adjustment on the bulk payment, but it's a credit adjustment on the patient type, on the patient's ledger. And so, I mean, to me, that seems to be the only way to do it because of man hours. So for future, I think what Paul and I could do is set the clients up and say, look, here's how you're going to want to do this. And Meg's going to take you through it. You're going to go bulk payment with a credit adjustment. So cash in, debit adjustment out. And then on the ledger side, you're going to produce real money and you're going to do a credit adjustment. They're going to all offset each other.
Yeah. I mean, that would be great if I could go into this call with at least the office is open-minded.
Preheated to it.
Doing it the bulk way. And I try, I mean, they don't, it's hard because, like, I mean, I'm with them through the implementation and this day by day and everything like that. I'm the only face, the only voice they're going to talk to, really.
Yeah.
But it's I don't know if it's a trust thing. I don't know if they just, because I always go, this is the way I recommend doing it.
Yeah.
This is the way I would do it if it were me. And
well, look, I didn't know any of that going into it. I hadn't, I'd only considered it I didn't realize it was a bulk payment thing even as an option. So, for me, I'm sitting here thinking, when you started, I was like, oh, I haven't heard that before. My brain wasn't working that way. So I thought you explained it well, and it makes sense to me.
Okay.
We just need to
we
need to prep the team on this as they come to you. So we can do a better job on our end too. So, all right, cool.
All right. Anything else? Any questions generally about DenVantage?
I don't think so. I'm sure there's something I'm forgetting, but I'll send this to Paula, and I'll send it to the doctors too. Your heads of DenVantage, so they can see this, and then we can keep the conversation going as well.
Perfect. Sounds good. I have well, I've got you anyway. Kevin sent me all the stuff that we're going to send out for invitations for offices to give you guys a call and take advantage of you guys. I had just sent something out yesterday about coronavirus. So I'm going to hopefully send it out tomorrow. I don't want to bombard them too closely, especially because they're like me. I'm annoyed about getting things about COVID.
Well, and here's the thing. While they're having downtime with coronavirus, it may be, like you said, a rainy day, go back and do some training on things. And I'm sure Paul and I can do that.
We did put that in. I put it in at the end of the email that I had. Did you get it? I can't remember now. I don't think so. I don't think I sent it out to business contacts. But yeah, I put it at the end. I was like, hey, this is a great time to do some extra training. If you guys are looking for something else to do, I'm here. And then I think to follow that up with your email about you guys would be great. So hopefully that helps, because today has been, for me anyway, super slow.
Yeah. I can see how that could happen right now. I think patient flow is going to be down for about 30 days. So it's going to be interesting.
Some of the offices I've talked to, they're shutting down completely. Like Dan's, they're only doing doctor work, not hygiene.
Yeah.
They're just fully open, or at least that's what he said he was going to be doing. So who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we had a meeting last night on that, so we'll see how it progresses. Yeah. We invited everybody. Everybody sees it from a different perspective. Yeah. So All right. Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.